Hey everyone. Now, if you like what I do, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm just testing to see if doing this at the beginning of the videos actually works. And I apologize for missing last week. A lot's been going on that I can't really talk about. But, and yes, I'm still in the truck. It's a long story too. But anyways, today's class is really going to be me rambling because there's a lot of stuff that I've seen lately and I feel like we need to touch on it. So, I've been running across a lot of empaths, extreme empaths like myself, who haven't come into their power. Well, they have come into their power. They don't know how to handle and channel and all of that. I have premonitions. I know quite a few people in Witch's Way and other groups also do. And a lot of it takes a lot of energy out, especially seeing everything unfold. You start to blame yourself, or you get drained and depressed and you don't know why. Welcome to being an empath. Basically what happens is you're taking everyone's energy, good and bad, especially when you don't have control of it. I'm still learning myself, but things I've learned so far about that and about things that help. And my wonderful high priestess, local high priestess, taught me these things. End of the day, first off, let me rewind a little bit. Start and end every day with grounding. Grounding and protection. Automatically. But at the end of the day, you need to eat a little something. You need to do some sort of physical activity. I don't care if it's taking a walk, taking a run, going to exercise, just dancing around your house while you munch on some crackers. I don't care. It could be anything. And yes, before you ask, yes, that counts too as physical activity. And then, again, do your grounding. Meditate before you go to bed. You will sleep a million times better, and you will feel a lot better. Also, you need to learn how to interpret your dreams. Once you learn about grounding and, the things you have to do to kind of help regulate yourself a little bit, it'll be easier to remember your dreams. A good bit of empaths don't remember their dreams, which I do think is weird, because that's literally the premonition half the time. And trust your instinct. That was my other point I was going to make. Yes, if something's wonky and you feel the need to check and double check and all that, yes, talk to your high priestess, talk to someone who's also a witch that's been doing it a little bit longer, whoever you need to, just to double check and, make sure you're on the right track. But always trust your intuition. Now, your intuition might not be 100%, but you're going to be on the right track. Your elders, your shamans, your high priestesses, whoever, whatever, the people who have been doing this longer than you have, tell them what you saw, what's wrong, or what weird feeling you have, and say, something's not right about this, I think we need to do this or this, and it's like brainstorming. Most of the time, they aren't going to tell you that you're ridiculous or that you're overreacting or you're crazy. Very rarely in witchcraft will you hear you're crazy, because everybody has either seen or heard crazier. As crazy as you think it is, everyone has seen or heard something crazier or experienced something crazier themselves. But it's basically like brainstorming with colleagues type thing. You are working with like-minded individuals and you're brainstorming and you're like, okay, how is the best way to handle this? And you go back and forth and you try to, and it helps you to figure out exactly what that feeling is, why you're feeling that feeling, and how to handle it. Now, a lot of witches, a lot of high priestesses, a lot of shaman, a lot of everybody in the community, especially higher up elders, that sort of thing, their automatic go-to is grounding. That is the first thing. And yes, I do agree, before you do anything, you need a ground. It will help you so much. But it's not the only course of action. Sometimes grounding is all you need. Every once in a while you need a good grounding in the middle of the day. Ain't nothing wrong with it. It just helps you recenter, calm down, get your flow going right, and focus. And get in the zone, all that. It's good. There is nothing wrong with grounding. Always ground. I will even vouch for that. Now, to be fair, everyone does grounding differently. The way I have it posted here is not the only way to do it. Some people envision a tube sticking right into the ground and right up to the sky, with energy coming from both ends, and then basically dancing around each other in the middle. Or doing like a full flow through. Some people see a little light of one color coming down, or flame or whatever coming down from above, one coming from below, and they'll just dance around each other, like swirling around each other. Not necessarily combining, but just swirling and intermingling a little bit, that sort of thing. And then, of course, you have the basic tree of life. Some people ground with stones. Everyone does it differently. I personally prefer a meditative grounding. Mine is, to me, what visually works best for me is a little flame coming down, little flame coming up of two different colors, and they swirl around each other and dance around each other. Even though I was taught Tree of Life, and I still use Tree of Life. Tree of Life has its place and its purpose. For big rituals or spell work, 100% recommend. Automatically, no fail. But for a simple, quick grounding, something like that is direct and to the point, helps. Because I noticed, with myself at least, that Tree of Life worked good in circle. It worked good with spell work and rituals and things like that. But for like a personal, quick little, I have to get my shit together type thing. Yeah, I'm far enough into cuss. YouTube has a weird thing that you have to be a couple minutes in before you can start cussing, but for a very quick get your shit together grounding, that works. The tube works. There are quick things to quickly ground because I have an office job. I can only step out for a minute or two. And doing a proper Tree of Life takes about 10 to 15 minutes if you're doing it properly. Sometimes a little longer. But doing that quick thing, that takes 5 minutes tops. And it's not a permanent fix, no. But it is a quick refocus, a quick reset. And then you rebuild your shield, whether it be the egg method or an elemental orb or whatever it is. And you're set. And with mine, it takes, like I said, a total of maybe 5 minutes max, depending on the situation. And I will just step outside to have a cigarette. After I'm done with my cigarette, I'll ground real quick and then go back inside, or before I have my cigarette. And it works. I'm not in jail. I'm not in the loony bin. Everyone's still alive, so I'm assuming it works. Joking, of course. But, like I said, you've got to trust your instincts. Always check with your elders. Elders, high priestess, what have you, shaman. Whoever the more experienced go-to witch is for you. Check with them. Or check in trusted members of your group and be like, hey, does this sound right? But I say this because I have major work I have to do this week. And my sister actually came up with a solution. Inadvertently. She didn't realize she did. But she posed a question to me that made me realize what I had to do. And then I sat there and I brought up my solution to the other people who are doing it with me, the work with me. And at first it was like, yeah, no, actually that makes freaking sense. Why did we not think of this sooner? And then one person got very hesitant and was worried about my well-being with it. And so after that, that evening I had a meeting with my sister, my high priestess. We have a whole group that meets, a whole coven that meets. And I checked with my high priestess. Well, technically my sister posed the question to her because my sister was raised Gardenian. And her mother was raised Gardenian. So very much old school, classically trained. Higher magic. And her mother, mind you, I adopted my sister. Or she adopted me. We adopted each other. But my sister said, my mom said, that the question that was posed was, do you have to face something Solomonic with Solomonic magic? Essentially. And her mother said, no, you can only face Solomonic with Solomonic magic. Well, then my sister asks my high priestess because she's like, look, we're kind of at a stalemate. We don't know exactly what the answer would be. And she's like, and she asked my high priestess the question, and my high priestess sits there and goes, you need to have Solomonic elements, but you do not have to face Solomonic issues with solely Solomonic magic. So, we were discussing it, and she told me a story about me and my sister and everyone in group, a story about how basically there was a house being foreclosed on, and the contractor was like refusing to go in the house, and come to find out black magic was being used. So she went in after taking the weird, possibly keepable things and putting them in her altar room, under the altar, and doing some other stuff to it, goes to this house, and they had issues finding the house and the code, and all this stuff was classic black magic shit that shows up in the real world, apparently. And they go in the house, and she tries to light the incense. They won't light. So she makes them light. She pulled elemental, and I think she had a butane torch she used to make sure they lit as well. And they ended up taking care of it, and everything was good. And the way my high priestess explained it was, basically, if you're in karate, if someone is throwing a straight punch, you don't block straight. You curve around a block. That is the best way to block. Or you strike from the side. Or curved, or whatever. A hook. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. And so on and so forth. Reverse and, other way around it works. And she said that the best way to do it is to, yes, you have to incorporate some Solomonic elements if that's what you're dealing with. But if you hit them with the curveball and you end up using Wicca or whatever else kind of magic, it's going to basically catch them by surprise, is how to put it. And you can work your way around. And it made perfect sense to me. And that also led me to realizing the other steps I needed to do. So it's one of those things. Yes, check with your elders. Your elders, your high priestess, whoever, they will have the best advice, the best analogies, and they can not necessarily tell you exactly what you need to do, but give you an idea of what you need to do. Because a good high priestess is not going to tell you exactly what you need to do for some off-the-wall spell work that, you're basically intuitively coming up with. But they'll say, okay, you need to look at this, look at this, look at this, and see what you can gather from here. Which is how my high priestess does with me. She says, here are your resources. We can do it this way, or this way, or this way. But you have to figure out what works for you. It goes back to this old chili analogy that she uses constantly. It's weird, but I love it. Everyone makes chili differently. Your way is not the same way that someone else does it. One person makes it vegetarian, one makes it solely meat, one mixes the two, one makes a white chili. But they all work. They all work for someone in some case. And you need to embrace what works for you. I am not going to directly tell someone, no, you have to do this. I will just tell you, this is what worked for me. And you can try it. It might not work for you the way it worked for me, but it will work in some way. And it's a jumping off point to figuring out what you need to do. But on that note, we are starting to hit the 20-minute mark. On that note, I will have another video up next week. And we are probably discussing, I might do more Crowley. And I still have that elemental one class in my book that I can do as well. So I'm going to do one of those. I think I had one other one. I'm not sure. But I'll figure it out. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like what I do. And I will see you next week. Bye.